Hey, Shanika from New York. Awesome. All right, so they say no sound. Let me see if I can hear myself. We're going to give it a second to connect back up. Hey, Shanika from New York. Okay, good. Awesome. All right, so now the audio is working for us. Great. Okay, so today for WIP Wednesday, we are talking a little bit more about stretch knit fabrics, but in a different project. I've had thousands of people download in the last 4 or 5 days my free fleece hat pattern. I have two. One is just like a little beanie like this that's reversible. And then another one that has the ear flaps connected to it so that you can cover your ears for those of you that live in really cold climates. And so I thought this would be a great way to chat a little bit more about stretchy fabrics. We're using some fabric scraps, and although we're not working with fleece, I wanted to share what other types of fabrics would work for this kind of a project. I know a lot of you have been signing up for my garment sewing courses lately, and I get some emails sometimes from people asking, what else can I use the fabric scraps for? This is going to be it. I was telling my husband last night, I said, how cute would it be to have a little kid with the little Helene cardigan with the little matching reversible hat? That would be super cute. So the fabric that I'm using here, or that I used here, is a double knit. So it's a little sturdier, has more body to it than a cotton jersey or a cotton spandex, like a lightweight single weight knit. And so it's reversible, so you can imagine, even without interfacing or anything, we added a lot more body because we're using two different double knit fabrics for this project. So this is the mustard colored bullet, and then this is an emerald colored one. This is just the scrap. We're all out of this fabric, but we still have the mustard in stock, and we have some funky neon colors, and we sell the fabric yardage in our online shop by the half yard. So if you have leftover scraps from the Helene cardigan course that you took, you can make this for adults and kids. So let me show you what the pattern looks like so you can see how little fabric you'll need. It's a free PDF download. The way to get it is to use the link I've included in the description box of the YouTube video. If you just do a search on Google for Crafty Gemini fleece hat, it's the first thing that pops up, okay? So like I said, there's two. One like this without the ear flaps and another one with ear flaps. And so I have the free step-by-step tutorial to go with it. So even if you can't catch all of the WIP Wednesday today, that's fine. Each pattern includes adult sizes and kid sizes. So you can just download both of the PDF files for them. And you can see this is it. You cut 4 of these of each fabric. So I cut 4 like this out of the teal fabric, and then I cut 4 more out of the mustard fabric. And then the headband portion is cut on the fold. All the information is on the pattern pieces for you. And again, I have step-by-step tutorials on my YouTube channel. Okay, let me pop in here before I kind of inventory the fabric and we start talking about the project a little bit more. All right. Okay, great. I see so many of you are tuning in. Hi, Kathy from Long Beach. Oh, we got neighbors, Florida neighbors tuning in. Hi, Gail. Hey, Carrie from DeLand. We have Vernia tuning in. She says she lives a little bit further south of me. I'm coming to you here from my home studio in North Central Florida. And okay, we're going to get started. So let me grab a needle that I need to put into this machine, because since I'm working with stretchy fabrics, I need to have a ballpoint jersey needle in this machine. And I was doing something else on it, so I took out the needle. Let me grab one real quick, and then we'll jump to the other camera shot so I can talk to y'all about the project. Let me grab my pack of needles here. And sometimes you can get away with like an 80-12 universal, but one quick way to know that your sewing machine does not like a universal needle when you're sewing through stretch knits is if you get skip stitches. Okay, if say you're doing a zigzag stitch and you see the zigzags all the way, and then you have a look and one of them looks like a straight stitch and it's not a zigzag, then you know you need to put a ballpoint jersey needle in there, or a stretch needle. Sometimes, you know, different machines can be a little bit picky. All right, let me grab my little screwdriver and get this cinched in there. Okay, I'm gonna thread this machine real quick. And I'll give y'all an update on the jean pattern or pajama course. I've already finished editing 15 video lessons and I'm not even close to being done. It's going to be so good, y'all. I share so many tips and tricks with you in that video course. So that will be announced soon. So just keep an eye out. You know that I want to do it so that the whole course is up and ready so that if you do take advantage of the early bird sale price, then you'll be able to access all the video content right then. All right, so here we are with the fabric pieces. I'm going to make an adult size one. This is the kid size one. So just keep in mind, because I get this question a lot, how do I make this for a baby? How do I make it for a man who has a bigger head than what the adult size pattern calls for? All you got to do, because it's a printable PDF, is play around a little with your printer settings. And so instead of setting it to print out at 100%, try 105 or 108, 110. And that is going to print all the pattern pieces to scale, but just bigger. Okay, so that is going to be the easiest way to size up. To size down, just do the opposite. So you can just set the printer setting to 85% or 80, okay? So the kid size is here. Now keep in mind that as you play around with different fabrics, of course the tutorial, remember, features fleece. If you are not using fleece, okay, let's talk a little bit about what fleece does to this. And we go through these fleece hats like crazy here, so I don't have a sample to show you, but fleece is bulkier than this fabric. So if you have a bulky fabric here on the outside and a bulky fabric on the inside, it's going to be smaller, right? Inside here. So think about that when you're choosing fabrics. We're using a double knit. So although this is thicker than a common jersey fabric, it's not as thick as fleece. So even the kid size hat could probably fit an adult with a smaller head or a teenager, something like that. Okay? So play around with your scraps and see what you can come up with. Okay, so I have my 4 pieces here. For this, because I'm working with bullet or Liverpool fabric, I need to be mindful of the right side and wrong side of the fabric because it does have a textured feel to it. So this is pretty side. I'm gonna match these up in sets of 2. So pretty side up, then this one pretty side down. The next one, pretty side up. This one pretty side down. And I'm going to match them all up like that. Now here I have this mint colored bullet fabric. And this fabric actually stretches a little bit less than this Liverpool. But that will work fine. If they're similar, you know, enough, it will work okay. And don't think that you have to use both kind of same weights. This would be cool to do with like a fleece outer and maybe a cotton spandex inner. That would be kind of cool. You know, so you get a lighter, more cotton near your head, but then the fleece blocking the cold winds on the outside. That would be fun also. And then the other one, we're going to match it up the same. Okay, and then for the band, remember that these, just as I show you or I include in the pattern piece itself, it needs to be cut on the fold. Excuse me, I'm pointing to it here, but it's on this side. So place unfold. So I cut that on the fold to cut 2 headband pieces. All right, so 4 of each of these of each of the 2 fabrics and 1 headband on the fold of each. So let me grab my ballpoint pins real quick. And let me pop in here and see if there's any questions coming in before I start. So Shanika's asking, could you use a stretch satin? Let's switch to my face for a minute because I see some good questions are coming in. That way I can look at y'all while I talk. All right, so Shanika's asking, could you use a stretch satin for the interior? That actually would work. I would just make sure that it has a decent amount of stretch in it, but I don't see why not. That would be really, really good and soft, right? And good for your hair too, no? It won't frizz it up like the fleece would. All right, let's see. Pam is watching from Maine. She says, I look great on the big screen TV. Girl, high definition does nothing for you if you don't put on a little something on your face. That's how I feel about it. All right, let's see. Okay, so that's on YouTube. Let me pop over to the Facebook page and see what our friends are asking over there. So Lisa says, I'm tuning in late. Vanessa, what fabric are you using? So I'm working with a bullet fabric, Liverpool, this kind of popular double knit. A lot of people are using them for headbands, for kids' bows, that kind of stuff. And we have several colors still left in stock in the online shop. We sell them for just by half yard cuts, I should say. And so it's stretchy, right? And it has more body to it because it is a double knit. So and reversible. Super cute. Now in the tutorial, I know that when I made it with the fleece and I filmed it in the video tutorial, I used contrasting band here. I wanted to do this one solid so you can see how it would look. But if you wanted to do like two different colors, say like a black for the main thing and then just like a pop of color for the headband, that would work also. Okay, and if you're making these for kids, remember, like I said, it's a great scrap buster. You don't need that much fabric. From half a yard, you could probably make at least 4 hats, I would say, based on what I cut. It's like a really narrow strip that I use, and half a yard is 18 inches. You can get at least 3, if not, I would say 4 or 5 if you're slick with how you play pattern Tetris, as I call it. All right, so Kenya says, which needle would one use when making them with a satin lining? So let's make sure that we reference that it would be a stretch satin, right? You don't want to put a woven fabric inside when the outer part of it stretches. You're going to have a tough time getting it over your head. It needs to have some type of a give. And I guess it would depend on the weight of the fabric. If it's a really light and flimsy stretch satin, I would probably use a 70-10, unless you see that you're having issues going through the thicker fabric with it. Okay, as you're putting it together for the top stitching. But I would probably sew the satin one with a smaller needle, then switch over if you're doing the exterior as one of the thicker fabrics. Put in a bigger needle, 80-12, 90-14, right? Depends on what you're using as the outer. And then the top stitching part down here, I would probably use the thicker one since you'll be going over multiple layers to top stitch and hold the one that is the lining in place, right? As you're wearing it. Okay, let's see what else. I love coming on here to answer some of these questions. This will be super fun. Okay. Hi, Gail. Thanks for tuning in. Okay, so we said the fabric was Bullet or Liverpool. Okay, so I'm going to start pinning these and sewing them. So let me have a look at this overhead shot so I can see where all I need to bring my sewing machine to. I'm going to set these guys aside for now, and we're going to start with these ones. I don't even pin when I go to work with these because the pieces are so small that I can just handle it as is. I'm going to just pull up the chat box on this thing so that I can see as I work. Okay, so I have my pins. I don't even really have to, but I'll show you. If you're going to use the pins, you just pin somewhere that's going to hold the 2 layers together. You know, and that's probably not ideal to pin right through the fabric beyond seam allowances because I don't know what fabric y'all will be using at home. So if it's something that if you pierce the fabric will leave a hole, then you don't want to do what I just did. You'll want to be pinning near the seam allowance, okay? So the way I've worked this up is that I've put them pretty sides touching. I'm going to start sewing at the top here. And now, although I have an 80-12 ballpoint jersey needle in the machine right now, I'm also still only going to work with a straight stitch. So some of you might be wondering, well, why are you using a straight stitch if we're working with stretchy fabrics? You know, oftentimes what we hear is to use a zigzag. I don't like the way the zigzag looks when you open a seam. Okay, I want it to play like a straight stitch. So you have the option of using a stretch stitch, which is like a lightning bolt, and that's a really narrow zigzag. But because this hat is not going to be stretched to the point of, say, swimwear or dancewear, you'd be surprised. You can get away a lot with just a straight stitch. So that's what I'm going to do. The key for me is going to be to lengthen it a little bit so that I don't have really tiny stitches and then the fabric doesn't feed through, because remember, we're working now with 2 layers of the bullet fabric, whereas if you make this out of fleece, you'll have 2 bulky layers of fleece, which are going to be a lot thicker than this. So these are all things that you have to keep in mind, okay, as you work through the project and troubleshoot what you're doing. So I'm going to lengthen my stitch length. Whoops. Let's go down. So stitch 1 is a straight stitch, and then for me, I'm lengthening to like a 2.6. Another way that you can make sure that you are preserving some of the stretch in the fabric is to tug the fabric and stretch it slightly as you sew. That's going to allow the fabric to have more room and more give in there as you work on it. Okay, and then I'm going to move my needle over because I'm going to be working with only a 1/4 inch seam allowance. So my needle is scooting over. And there, that should be a chunky 1/4 inch. So let me grab a fabric marking tool just so I can show you where I'm starting, since y'all won't be able to see exactly. But So we're going to start at the top, at the narrowest point at the top of the little hat pattern piece. So I'm going to start there, and I'm starting 1/4 of an inch in. Okay, where that is, I'm just going to start there and come down this side 1/4 of an inch. Okay, or using 1/4 of an inch seam allowance, I should say. So the way that I find works good is if I put it like this, completely off to the side. I'm going to, let me slow down my machine so I don't take off on you. So needle down. So I take like 2 or 3 stitches, okay? And then I'm going to stop with the needle in, lift the presser foot up. So now I can pivot this, okay? Don't try to just go from here to sewing that curve. You're going to have some not so successful results, especially if you're a beginner. So I took a few stitches like that across the top. Now I'm going to turn this a little and bring the presser foot lever back down, and then see, and I can tell that the fabric is still holding a little bit. I can stand to lengthen my stitch length a little bit without losing the integrity of the construction on that seam. And I can speed up now. So I'm just coming down the side. And then I'm a backstitch at the end. And notice I didn't really backstitch at the beginning, at the top. We're going to have a seam that cuts across there, so you don't really have to backstitch at the top if you don't want to. Okay, so I did that one. I'm going to do the same thing to all the remaining pairs I have. Remember, start at the tip top, 1/4 of an inch down, take a few stitches, so stop with the needle down, lift the presser foot, get this thread out of my way, pivot, and then stitch down the side. This is also a good project for you to practice sewing slight curves. After you do something like this, you'll be able to take on, you know, steeper curves, garment stuff with armholes, all that kind of good stuff. But because it's not that sharp of a curve and you're doing it partially, I think that works well. Do the same thing for the other two. And if you see any questions, you can tell me. Oops, let's start this way first. So like I said, this would be good if you shrank it down some and made them for like little baby hats that are made out of cotton spandex. That would be super cute. The shape is going to be the same, but you can, like I said, it's a free PDF you can download in my online shop. So you can just print it out and set your printer to print it at, you know, less than 100%. So like 75 or 85 or whatever. Oops, I forgot to hit the thingy. It's hard for me to see because the button is under and I'm looking at the machine from up top. Well, that should be fine because we're still going to have another seam that intersects that seam too. All right, I have one more set here. So if you have fabrics in your stash that are, I would say in this case, like non-traditional to what it's, you know, the stuff that you used it for initially, think about, you know, think a little bit outside the box. See if you have some thicker stretch knit fabrics that would work well for this type of a hat. And remember, we do have some colors of the Bullet Liverpool in the online shop that you can purchase by the half yard. And they're all reversible, you know, all these hats are reversible. So if you buy half a yard of 2 different colors, you can make a bunch of different hats. Okay, so the next step is to gather 2 and 2, depending on how you want it, right? If you want half the hat to be one color and half the hat to be the other, that would be cool to give as gifts for like sports teams or college teams type of color coordinating stuff. I'm going to take this one, place it on here. I'm matching this top intersection. And then there I will send the seam allowance in one seam allowance in one direction and the other one in the other, and just place a pin there because I don't want that to move on me when I get to sewing. And you can place pins at the bottom edge just to make sure, because when we're working with stretchy fabric sometimes we just get like into the groove of like feeding it through, and then you don't realize that maybe you're stretching one layer more than the other. So sometimes it helps to put a few pins just so you know, hey, when I got here, whatever bubbliness I have, I need to make sure that I keep it nice and taut in there so that it all matches up and you don't actually sew in a pucker into your hat. All right, and then on the other side, the same thing. And so the next seam we're going to sew is the top of the crown of the hat. This is such a simple project, y'all, and it is very beginner friendly in the sense of like, even if your seams are not perfectly straight, it'll still look and be a wearable hat. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and pin the other one now. I'll stop and take some questions, and then we'll stitch both of these up at the same time. So again, intersection at the top, push seam allowance, one in one direction and one in the other, just to help reduce the bulk a little bit. Especially helpful when we're working with thicker fabrics, right? And some of these bullet and Liverpool fabrics are going to be more stable than others, so you just got to play around with it. But like I said, they don't have to be exact same weight or have the exact same amount of stretch. You can mix and match them a little bit, you know, but make sure that it's still something that stretches. You don't want to have a fabric that don't stretch and try to match it up with one that does. It's going to give you a headache. All right. Let's pop over to my face so I can peek in here and see. Okay. Hi, Lori from South Jersey. Sherry's asking, how do we get to the online shop? So the online shop is on our main website. You can go to craftygemini.com and you'll see a tab that says shop. All the products that we sell, whether they're digital or physical products, can be found there. So if you type in fleece hat in the search box of our shop, it'll pop up both. The one that has the ear flaps, the free PDF that has the ear flaps, and then the free PDF that's just like this, the reversible beanie PDF. And remember, each one is in kids, it's child size and adult size, but like I said, you can tweak your printer settings so that you can size up or size down accordingly. And then what else was I going to say? Oh, they're listed, excuse me, the PDF patterns are listed in the online shop because they're free, but you have to like purchase them for $0. So just, you know, when you pull up the product, add it to your cart and then proceed to check out for free. And then you'll have it always linked to your account. So if you lose the printable or you have to go somewhere else to print it, you can always just log into your Crafty Gemini account and access it that way, you know, because then you'll have a record of your orders, okay? So yeah, so thanks for the question, Sherry. The online shop is at craftygemini.com/shop also. And we have the link here for you going in the chat box. And of course, I've included all the links since I see you're watching on YouTube. The links are in there for you too. Victoria's asking, where do I get the pattern? So hopefully my question, or the question I just answered, also answered your question. And then Andrew's mom is asking, can I use my serger for this? So you absolutely can use your serger for this. Just be mindful of how many threads you have set up because you can get quite bulky seams in there. Especially if you're working with thicker fabrics. So just be mindful of that. You might want to, since this is not going to get a lot of wear and tear like something that's going to be on your body, although it will need to stretch, it's not going to be like extended beyond like a bathing suit or something would. So I would probably recommend a 3-thread overlock stitch and setting up your serger just to 3 threads so you get a little bit narrower of a seam allowance. Because remember, these two get put one on top of the other. So their seams are set up exactly, you know, one on top of the other. So if you're working with a thick fabric, 2 bulky seams doubled up on each seam can be a little bit much. But yes, you can absolutely do it with the serger all the way until the last step. The top stitching will need to be done on a sewing machine or on a cover stitch machine because otherwise you would cut the whole bottom edge off if you did it with a serger too. Or even if you took off the blade, it just wouldn't look right, I think. All right, let's see. That was a great question. Melissa says, do you how to sew? I'm not sure what that question is. Margaret from Canada says, we need warm hats here. Thank you. Absolutely. No problem. I'm glad to share the project. And because it's been such a popular I think that tutorial is like 8 years old. It's still a good one. I was saying in the last 4 or 5 days, I've had thousands of people download them. And I get an email every time somebody makes a purchase or a download. And I'm like, where are all these people coming from? So if you all know who shared my tutorial out there that's sending all that traffic to my site, let them know I say thank you. So a lot of people have been downloading it recently. And I wanted to kind of give it a new twist and show y'all that you don't have to just use fleece because the pattern is for fleece. Okay, so a thick fabric, double knit. You can use stretch wool knits. That would be amazing, actually. If anybody's done that, let me know and send me a picture. I would love to see that. So we just need some stretch, and the warmer the fabric, the warmer your hat will be, right? Okay, Allison is asking, hi Vanessa, have y'all got any more of the leggings fabric for the leggings class? I keep missing out when you send me an email. So we do have some more leggings kits fabric. For those of you that don't know what we're talking about, I teach online garment sewing courses, and the last one that we posted was for leggings a couple months ago, I think. And it's for leggings, and so we sell kits for whatever new online courses we teach. And so when we sell out, we restock, we send students an email, say, hey, we have some more in stock because they sell out really, really quickly. But yes, we do have more fabric in stock, and we will be working to make more kits. The only thing is that the fabric I have is going to be some for kits, or some for Clara leggings kits, and some for the new pajamas class that's coming up next, because they both take, you know, the stretch knit fabric. So just be aware of that, and just be on the lookout for an email so that we can contact you and let you know when they're back in stock. Okay, Anne says an embroidery group did a tutorial and used your hat. I have seen that before, where there's some Facebook groups that do like the little critter faces on the fleece hat, and they add the little ears, and they use my base pattern, or they use my pattern as the base for it. So that's super fun. Yeah, so Anne says she saw that an embroidery group did that. Thank you. Yeah, so like a ton of people have been downloading that thing. But yeah, now think outside the box and see if you have any scraps left over from your Helene cardigan. Maybe you did the Nicole tunic top, or you have Liverpool and bullet, or double knits, or stretch wool knits, or stretch satin like we've been talking about. So I'm all about, you know, helping you elevate your sewing skills, thinking outside the box, and taking those skills and applying them to other projects with the knowledge that you have. So let me go ahead and finish working on this one so you all can see how it turns out. So let's go ahead and switch to the working cam. Okay, so now I'm using the same 1/4 inch seam allowance, and I'm just stitching this, like the half moon of the crown. Let me turn this a little so it's more comfy for me to see what exactly it is I'm doing. So I'm gonna see if I can back stitch a few. Oh, I got a little thread mess here. Looks like I started on 1 layer of fabric instead of 2 right at the top. So these are all little things. People tend to think like, oh no, my machine is broken. It's just what your machine likes, what it doesn't like, what you're doing. So see, I had started sewing just on 1 fabric layer. That's why I tell people also, whenever you're working on something, test it through 2 layers of fabric, because that's how it's meant to be sewn through. You know, I've seen students before, like I'm checking out this stitch, and they have like just 1 layer of fabric feeding it through. I'm like, no, no, no. You're not going to get a true representation of it. Let me make sure this is not caught on nothing. Okay, no. Just the staticky little fibers getting caught on the metal. Okay. Now, when you get to this top part, it can be a little tricky on your first go around, because depending on where exactly you started stitching, you might see that like now when you come across it, you're sewing too high up, and maybe on the side seams, you didn't start high enough, and then you're like, oh no, I have a little hole up here. So once you do it once, you'll know what you did wrong. That's why I say start right at the middle of the top, a 1/4 of an inch down, so that now when I come across with this seam, I intersect those first stitches. And I'm just double checking here, make sure my intersection is good. It should be close enough. It might not be perfect, but it's going to be good enough. All right, and then I just continue off to the other side. Okay. Remember, don't sew over pins. Pull them out before you get to them, and then we'll do a couple back stitch there. Now for back stitching, I always forget to like mention what it is that you're doing on back stitching, because I know a lot of people are like, well, why did you do the back stitch, or what is that little U-turn button on my machine for, right? So back stitching allows the machine to stitch in reverse, and so because you're stitching forward and then it goes in reverse, it's locking those previous stitches in place, because now they have more stitches over top of them, okay? But I also find that when I tell my students, especially in person, to backstitch at the end, they'll backstitch like 3 inches up the project. There is no need for that. You're just adding way more thread bulk. The key is to just backstitch 1 or 2 stitches, really. I mean, 3 if you're feeling like you need to really hold something in place, but you shouldn't have to backstitch that far over. And if it's something that you do feel like you need to, just go ahead and do a full another seam over top of it. All right, let's do this one. And see something I just noticed. I used a chunkier pin to pin that one in, to pin this intersection in place. And as soon as I remove the pin, the fabrics lay flatter. So think about using some narrower, finer pins. Because even something like that, you might say, well, I cut it accurately and I pinned it right. What's going on? And it's just because the pin itself is thick. There's so many little things that come into play. People that don't sew, when they see people that do sew, they're like, oh, it's so easy for you. And you're like, yeah, it is easy because now I know how to do it. But when you first start off, I mean, look at all the little things that you need to know how to troubleshoot or even recognize in your projects to get beyond them, right? No thread tails. Oh, here they are. Okay. Let's see. Berkey's 827 is asking, do you have an option with the ear flaps? I do. It's on the website. You can download the PDF. This is the option that has the ear flaps, the pattern piece that goes with it. And that also comes in kids and adult sizes. Okay. Claire, who makes things, says, I made 10 hats for my family using your patterns over the years. Not this one, though. I think she's talking about the ear flap one then. And Sharon says, is that a 1/4 inch seam? It is. I mean, I'm a quilter, so my 1/4 inch seams tend to be a little bit scant, a little bit on the scanty side. But think about it. If the pattern was designed for 1/4 inch seams and you sew exactly a 1/4 inch seam, then it's going to be how it was, right? Like how it's supposed to be. If you sewed a scant 1/4 inch seam, it's going to be a little bit bigger, but barely, by not much, right? Because we're still accounting for the stretch in the fabric, so that's going to help us too. Let me get rid of this real quick. Let's sew the bands before I start showing you how to do that part. But that's how you would do it, pretty side to pretty side, okay? So for the bands, we're going to make a loop with it, pretty sides touching, and just stitch down the short sides here and here. So let me stitch this up quick. Okay. Yeah, Claire says, yeah, it was the ear flap one that she's made for Christmas hats. Okay, so this one, all right, here. And notice that even on this beginner machine, I'm not even using a walking foot or anything to feed this fabric through. Sometimes you'll find that if your machine struggles with a cotton spandex fabric that's too lightweight, that it actually does better when you use these more stable knits. All right. And if you're wondering about the seam allowance, remember I moved my needle position over so that I don't even have to change out the presser foot. I don't have to use a specialty 1/4 inch foot. If your machine has stitch length and stitch width changing capabilities, like here for mine, I scooted the needle position by adjusting the stitch width, because on a straight stitch, there is no width. So on machines that allow you to change both length and width, when you change the width, if you keep an eye on your needle, you'll see that the needle moves over to the right or over to the left. So that's what I like to use, and that way I can make my seam allowances more scant or chunkier if I need to, if I'm doing a 1/4 inch. Okay, so for this one, I'm just going to do it the same as this, where I'm going to match up the color band to itself. So you're going to pick one of these seams. That one's a little off, so let me grab a neater looking one, this one. And I'm going to line it up pretty side to pretty side with the seam on the band. Okay, now here you can press that seam open and pin it in place, or you can do what we did before by pressing one seam allowance in one direction and then the other. But here it's important, it matches up just right, so don't stretch it. That pin's big. Looks like some of my other pins have sneaked their way into this ballpoint pin's magnetic pin cushion. All right. So I'm just walking my fingers around as I place these pins. I'm not stretching either of them. I just want it to lie flat and smooth. Ooh. Yep, there's definitely some other pins in here. Okay, so like that. I'm going to go ahead and stitch this one up. So Joan is asking, do you use the same colored thread on your hats for all the pieces? I do, right? I'm working with a thicker fabric here, and you probably can't even see it. But I use the hot pink top stitching thread here. And then I changed out the bobbin to a light blue. Is that wild or what? I have hot pink on the top, so I top stitch it from this side, and then light blue on the bottom. The fabric is so textured and stuff, you're not really going to see it. And for me, it's another opportunity to add a little something, a little zing and pop of color, which I love. But yeah, if you're working with like a light fabric and a dark fabric, really light and really dark, then you may want to put one thread on the top and one on the bobbin. If your machine has decent tension, the results should be pretty good. And even if the tension is like a little bit off, because we are working with thicker, more textured fabrics, it's like where it would be off on a really flat cotton fabric, it almost gets lost in the texture of the fabric. So play around with that without feeling like, oh no, I might mess it up completely. Lori's asking, is there an easy way to tell the right from the wrong side? Oh, you can easily see it on these fabrics. Let me see if that shows up. Do you see how that's like smooth? And then this side is textured. Let me see. Bren, your head. So you see how this is like more matte and this almost has more like a textured sheen to it. So this is the right side and this is the wrong side. When you have it up close, no matter the color, you'll be able to see which is which easily. Especially if we're talking like Bullet and Liverpool, because they're textured. So the side that has the texture is going to be it. I'm going to lengthen my stitch length a little bit. And so I'm just sewing the seam up, connecting the hat to the headband. Let me make sure I'm stopping with that needle down. Just make sure that as you're lining up pieces, it's pretty side to pretty side. This is going to be for me. And because it's an adult hat, even though I'm sewing in the round, I didn't even remove the free arm. I don't have to. I still have plenty of room to rotate it through here. There's a lot of different ways of sewing in the round, but I felt like I had plenty of room to get this around. So you see how with this hand, I'm kind of just like pinching this forward as it feeds through. So I'm just using like a light minty colored thread on here. It matches this more accurately than this darker teal. Now I'm coming over to my first couple stitches and I'm just going to go over them by a few and hit it with a back stitch. Why not? Okay. Vicky says, what a truly clean workstation. LOL. Girl, you better stop. You don't even know what's around me and behind me. But see where I matched up that seam with the hat? Nice and perfect. And this basically just signifies to us what is the back of the hat. Okay? As you're wearing it, because you don't really want to have that seam going right down the middle of your face or your forehead. All right, let me pick one here to line it up with. This is the next one. And I am going to open the seam here. I feel like this fabric has a little bit more weight to it. Wrong pin. And then again, no stretching, I'm just only like, it's not that I'm stretching it, it's like I'm straightening it to make sure that both line up nicely. Why do I have these big pins in here? Good gracious. Okay. And you always, even if you are like me and you skip pins a lot of the time, you always want to do this step at least to like see. You know, walk your fingers around and make sure that you're not just going to start sewing and realize, oh my gosh, I have an extra inch here that I need to ease in somehow, or double check that you cut the pattern piece correctly and all that. Because it's going to be a lot worse to have to take out stitches. Okay, so that works. Let's put this here. And we're going to stitch right around just like that. And if you can sew straight, sometimes people get discouraged, especially beginners, with sewing with stretchy fabrics and sewing stuff that's rounded. It's a hat. You can see that all I'm sewing is actually straight. If you can sew straight, you can make this. Because even when we were putting the hat together, it was like such a slight curve that if you follow the tip I shared with you of stitching straight first and then pivoting it a little bit, it's almost like it's a straight seam. And this part here is like all the way around, even though it's in a circular shape, right? The circumference of the head, it's still straight. I'm just feeding it through straight, following the edge of my presser foot as a guide. And Lou's asking, can you use clips instead of pins? Absolutely. You can use, and by clips, for those that may not know, Lou is asking about these little plastic clips. Absolutely. I just kind of, you know, out of habit have certain things that I prefer to use my clips for and certain things that I prefer to use my pins for, but either way will work. The key is, you know, especially when you're matching intersections, you want the intersections to match. So if you feel like you can get an accurate hold with a clip, go for it. All right, I'm coming back around. Let's go over those first couple stitches and then a back stitch. Okay. Anne is asking if we sell the snips. We do, but we are currently out of stock. These little snips are the handiest little thing. We're out of stock right now, but we are waiting on an order to restock them. So we'll send it out in an upcoming email newsletter, and that's a great time to tell y'all, ooh, look at that. Perfect. Okay. The perfect time to tell y'all that if you're not already subscribed to my email newsletter, make sure that you head over to craftygemini.com and click on the email sign up. That's how you find out about all my courses, my lives, sales, coupon codes, early bird sale price, what's coming up next, when we're going live. All the Crafty Gemini happenings happen there. All right, so now I'm pinning it together, pretty side of the hat with pretty side of the hat, okay? And what I've done is I've found the ones where I have these intersections from the top to the band, top to the band, and I'm gonna line those up. That way, since it's reversible, no matter which one you're wearing out, you'll still have that back seam in the same location, so you'll know what the back of the hat is. And I'm gonna use my pins. You can use your clips. And so it's like this. So when you're looking at it and you're pinning, you should be looking at the wrong side of both. And so again, if you did an accurate job sewing seam allowances and cutting, these two should match up very easily without you stretching it. And that's all we have left to do is to stitch around this bottom circumference, and we're just going to leave a little hole so we can flip the whole hat out and top stitch it. Easy peasy. And like I said, this is a free PDF download that you can get at craftygemini.com in the shop. Just type in fleece hat and you'll see two options there. This one that has no ear flaps, meaning it's just like a little, it's just like a hat, a beanie, like this. And then I also have another one that has ear flaps built into it if you need a cozier hat. And so in those free tutorials that I teach along with that free PDF download or those PDF downloads, remember the size or the PDF includes kids and adult sizes. And then in the tutorials for them, the video tutorials for them, I teach you how to make it out of a fleece. So here I'm making this one out of a bullet fabric. Look at that. And it works perfectly. There's not going to be any bubbling, nothing extra that's left out. Y'all, I did good. Actually, I'm going to snap a picture of this so I can share it on Instagram later and tell people to sign up and check us out when we go live. Isn't that cute? This is the behind the scenes. When I look at something I'm working on and it looks good, I'm like, picture. Let's style it a little bit more with the sewing machine in the shot. And be working. All right, awesome. So now let's do a quick stitch around. Here you do have to remember to leave an opening, okay? And because I see that my center seam at the back is right here, I'm gonna leave the hole somewhere back there because I know that's gonna be on the back of the hat. Even if it's a little wobbly or you mess up, nobody's gonna see it. So we're gonna leave an opening like this. And you might be surprised to see that you don't need to leave like a 5 or 6 inch opening for a hat, even if it's an adult hat. If I just leave 2 inches, that's gonna be more than plenty for me to flip this out through. And remember, the smaller the opening you leave, the easier it's gonna be for you to close it up in the top stitching. So I don't wanna leave it right at the intersection. So my idea is to start here, somewhere here, and when I come back around this way, I'm gonna stop like right here. Okay, let's go for it. So there is some pre-planning that goes into where you're going to leave your opening, so think about that. And again, it's the same 1/4 inch seam. You can even try it on if you feel like the band is too low or it's too wide. This would be the time to like cut it, you know, or use a larger seam allowance and then trim down. There's so many different things you can do. Oh, and you know what? I should have backstitched, y'all. We'll fix it when we come around. So when you leave an opening in anything, you want to backstitch at the beginning and at the ends, because then in between that beginning and end, you're going to have an opening, and when you go to reach in there and pull, you don't want the stitches to just start unraveling on you as you're trying to work the rest of the hat out through that opening. All right. Oh, this is cute. Okay, a little more. So again, you can download the free PDF from my website and my online shop. It is in the shop because you need to purchase it, but you purchase it for free. So just add it to your cart and then proceed to check out with it. And that way you'll get an emailed receipt and you'll see the files right there in the emailed receipt for you to download. Where are my snips? Here they are, my very handy little snips. We have them, and then every time I feature them or I put them in a flash sale bundle, we sell out like that. All right, so I'm coming back around. My initial stitches are here. I'm going to stop somewhere here. I don't need a big opening at all. And I'm going to backstitch. That's probably even more than I really needed, but 2 inches, okay. I'm going to cut here. And then because I forgot to backstitch at the beginning, I'm going to load it back in and just take a couple stitches right at the beginning where I did to make sure that those stitches don't come off. And that's it. That's all you got to do. I know some of you out there, if you forget to backstitch, you'll like pull out the seam when you realize it. Just stitch right over the first couple stitches. It ain't going nowhere. Okay, so I have a little hole here. I'm going to reach in through there. Hope that while I've been running my mouth, I did everything right. Okay, so now you have this. Ta-da! And now you're going to tuck one inside of the other. So it doesn't matter which one, right? Because it's going to be reversible. And if you were using like a cotton spandex, even with this, I may even put like a little cloth on it to give it a press. Remember, if you're working with synthetic fabrics like the fleeces and this stuff, Bullet or Liverpool, you don't really want to take a hot iron to this, even though I know it's tempting to want to make it all sit flat. But don't do it, because you're going to burn your fabric and it's going to get shiny. And then you're going to be mad. All right, so this is the finished hat. Super cute. And then I would just go along the bottom edge. This is one thing that I will do because this is a polyester fabric and I don't want to hit it with the iron. So what I'm going to do is tip time. Grab your clips and pinch it right where you want the lining to be to the inside, right? One layer and the other one to the outside. Let me see if I'm just showing y'all this super out of focus or not. All right. And then I'm just going to walk around, roll everything exactly where I want it to be, and put a wonder clip. And just leave it like that for a couple hours. And it's almost like a fake press job. It'll stay. And then go back and top stitch it, you know, so that the fabric is held in place. Because you see how it wants to come out? If you take this to your sewing machine and you don't do a really good job of holding one to the inside and one to the other, what happens is on this side of the hat, you're going to see some of this. And then on that side of the hat, you're going to see some of this. You want to have it nice and neat. Although it is reversible, yes, we know there are two fabrics. We want to do a good job. And so that's just what I'll do like that. And wherever you find the little opening, look, it's even hard to find it because the fabric wants to roll to the wrong side anyways. Look, That's where the opening is, and the seam allowance, or like the raw fabric, is not even trying to come out. It's staying in there just fine. So when I come around to this side where the opening is, don't worry about hand stitching. Just put your clips there so when you do go around to top stitch, you're going to catch that with everything else, and it's going to look seamless. Nobody's going to know the hole was there. All right, like that. And just put some more clips. Super cute. And there's the little reversible hat. Fun, fun, fun. All right, so let me pop in here. Let's see my face. See if we have some questions that I can answer before we finish off here. That was not bad. I knew I can finish it in one episode, but I mean, I'm not totally done. But I really want to press it, but I'm going to hold back from burning my fabric and melting it because this is a polyester, okay? So let's see. Oh, Faye says she has a great tip. She says, I have a command hook on my machine that I hang my snips on, and they're always handy. That's a great idea, Faye. Thanks for sharing that. Diane says she loves it. She downloaded the pattern years ago. And Sharon's asking again about the fabric that we use for the hat. So we use Bullet or Liverpool fabric. It's a double knit type of fabric. We have some funky colors, the mustard color. I think we have like neon pink, this minty color we have in the shop. You can check it out. I included links in the description box below the video. And then if you just go to my shop, just do a quick search for, or click on fabric, and all the fabric that we sell will pull up. You'll see it there. It's like a bunch of little squares with different colors for the Bullet fabric. All right. Gail says, you always match your seams. I have to cross my fingers. Love this hat. That is hilarious. You get better with time. And I don't always match my seams. I try to. You know, if you set yourself up for success, chances are you have a better chance of getting there. That's why I put those pins at the intersections. Those definitely help. All right. Sandy says clips are easier to find on her floor than pins. This is true, but the magnetic pin cushion comes in super handy because you don't know how many times we've dropped these at the shop. When I taught classes, the kids would drop them all the time, and all we have to do is pick them up and go, and the magnet picks them all up. So the magnetic ones are where it's at for me, at least. Okay. Esper says the one with the ear flaps pattern, is it also reversible? It is. It is also reversible. And Alicia's asking, of course, when is the pajama class? It's coming super soon. I've already edited 15 video lessons for the course. And I'm not even close to being done. I mean, I'm close, but there's going to be a lot of lessons in this one for sure. And we're adding the different hacks to it, because I'm going to show you how to hack it into short sleeve and shorts and all that. So that more info will be coming on that. So remember that we are here. I would tell you to tune in Wednesdays at 1 p.m. Eastern. I go live on the Crafty Gemini Facebook page as well as the YouTube channel, the Crafty Gemini YouTube channel. And then on Friday nights, we are here as well at 7 p.m. Eastern. So this Friday, 2 days, meet me back. I will be here with a good flash sale Friday for y'all. Yes, we have a question. I don't know why they call it bullet fabric. I'm sure it has something to do with the texture that's on it. Because the Liverpool fabric has texture too, but slightly different, and so then they call bullet Liverpool, and it is a different type of texture. The little bits on it are like short, narrow little things. Maybe they look like bullets. I don't know, but I could see how they could call it that. It's just a textured little fabric. I don't know. And you should do some research on that. Okay. And then over on YouTube, make sure if you all enjoy these WIP Wednesdays and Flash Sale Fridays and the live chats on Fridays, definitely make sure to give the videos, like it on Facebook, give it a thumbs up on YouTube, share it across the different social media sites with your crafty friends. The more people we can get on here, the better. I love your questions, love your tips, and then that way I also get to share a little something with you all that I'm working on. Thank you, Linda. She says your instructions are always great. All right. So thanks everybody for tuning in today, and I will see you all on Friday. Bye. On Facebook, give it a thumbs up. On YouTube, share it across the different social media sites